Welcome, my friends, my family, my fellow gamers. Your only friend is YouTube Streets, Puerto77. Let's have a conversation. Something I've been thinking about little by little over the last couple of weeks. I'm noticing a shift in the hierarchy of power within the Xbox community, right? And hear me out. So over the last couple of weeks, big conversations of, I didn't say big, but a lot of conversations pertaining to the Xbox Series S. And how, because it's a very weak platform, it's potentially messing things up for the Xbox Series X. Game development between the two consoles. You got Xbox content creators and YouTubers calling for Microsoft to stop the parity clause between the two, when in the beginning they were huge advocates for the Xbox Series S. And normally I think any other gen, or not really any other gen, but normally you wouldn't have that much pushback over something that is obviously a problem. Now hear me out. Lots of pushback from Xbox gamers over something that is obviously a problem. When you have developers delaying releases on the Xbox platform, when Microsoft first party themselves are delaying features in their own games on their own Xbox console platform, there's a clear problem. But you're still getting a lot of pushback. And for a while I was thinking, damn, this is crazy. Something so obvious, and you get all this pushback. I see more people who are genuinely concerned on how the PS5 would perform than I do see with the Xbox Series S, which is actually proven to have issues. So I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then I realized the hierarchy of power shifted. Now, you're probably thinking, Porter, come here. You're like, Porter, come here. What you talking about, the hierarchy of power? You're probably moving your camera like, come talk to me. I don't understand. Well, let me explain. I'm going to use the two terms for the sake of this conversation: hardcore and casuals. Now, obviously, those are expansive terms. Hardcore could range anything from, like, the Evo Street Fighter gamers who only play Street Fighter, but god damn it, they're hardcore because they will whoop your ass. Call of Duty gamers, whatever. But for this conversation, we're going to use those two terms, and I'm going to explain and define those two terms for the sake of this conversation. So, the hardcore, for the sake of this conversation, are the ones who buy the consoles day one, regardless of price. They'll pay for all the subscriptions, and they buy lots of games. Hardcore gamers buy lots of games. They're the ones that was always complaining about their backlogs too big. And even when their backlog is already big, they still buy the latest big title. So you know what I'm talking about, right? Those are the hardcore. The casuals, those are the ones that don't buy the consoles day one. They wait maybe 2, 3, 4, even 5 years. They primarily buy the consoles when it's around $300, $250. And then they buy the games that already got discounts, $15, $20. Some even get used games for $14, $12. Those are the casuals, right? So you got two distinct groups. You got the hardcore that buy the consoles in the beginning. They're the ones that, are buying the consoles, providing the revenue, buying the games, until the casual starts jumping in on the train with cheaper price consoles and stuff like that, right? But even when the casuals do jump on, they still don't buy a lot of games. They still buy only a couple of games a year, maybe throughout the rest of the gen. And if they do buy a game, it has to be like a really big game, right? Like if they do buy a game day one, like a Grand Theft Auto 6, Madden, 2K, stuff like that. Those are the two groups. So for generations, hardcore had the power. At least on Xbox, right? They're the ones with the hierarchy of power because they're the ones that put up the big bread. They buy the consoles and they buy games across the board. Well, the casuals, they jump on board when the console's cheaper, the games are cheaper, and they only buy a few big games. It has to be like the ultra big games, right? Okay. And that's how it's been generation after generation after generation. Now, Microsoft, when they released the Xbox 360, they came up with an idea that says, hey, let's try to help out those casual gamers jump on sooner. So that's where they released the Xbox 360 without the hard drive for $300. And you had the Xbox 360 with the hard drive for $400. And it worked. That $300 price point right off the cuff got some, casual gamers to jump on board, right? Microsoft repeated that same strategy again, except here's the problem, and this is where it gets interesting. See, with the 360, it was the same hardware. Nothing changed. The only difference was the hard drive. If you bought the cheaper, I think it was called the Xbox Arcade, 360 Arcade, it was a memory card. But you could buy the hard drive later. But this time is different because Microsoft, they decided to create two different hardwares. And what I mean by that is one is clearly more powerful than the other, right? So you have the Xbox Series S, which is the weaker console, and Xbox Series X, which is the premium console, right? Top of the line. That's the one with all the hardware and all that stuff that it can do. Okay. So now, here's the problem with that strategy. Who is the dominant console? Is the Xbox Series S or the Xbox Series X? Well, here's the thing. The hardcore had the power because at the end of the day, Benjamin Franklin was on their side. It's on the hardcore side. Because again, the hardcore is the ones that buy the consoles at the highest price. They're the one that buys the most games. All that stuff is geared towards the hardcore. But with this gen, with the Xbox Series S, Microsoft created an environment to include with Game Pass where the casuals have just as much power as a hardcore. Because now a casual could buy an Xbox for $300 and subscribe to Game Pass. And that right there is no different than an Xbox Series X gamer who buys a $500 console and subscribes to Game Pass. Now you can say, well, the console's still $500. True. But what Microsoft is looking at is not the console itself. It's which device brings in the most subscribers for Game Pass. And that advantage is the casuals. Because the majority of Xbox sales on the console side is the Series S. So that is actually doing what Microsoft wants. Buy a device so they could get you on Game Pass. Now here's the real crazy part, right? The majority of Series S gamers are the ones pushing back on saying that Series S is a problem. Now why are they pushing back? Because remember what I said. These are the guys that normally won't buy a console 2 to 3 years later. They won't buy the console until it's like $300, $350, $250, right? But now they can get consoles day one and have access to 400 games, 500 games, whatever the library is, for a cheap price. So for the first time ever in gaming, the casuals are in step, or you could arguably say ahead of the hardcore. Because they have the advantage now. There's more of them than there are hardcore. And they are providing, or if not providing more money to Microsoft. Because there are more casuals with Game Pass than there are hardcore Game Pass. And the casuals don't want that to go away. They don't care about performance. They don't care about VRR or any of that stuff. They don't even care if Microsoft doesn't even provide performance options ever. Right? Because they're not willing to risk siding with power performance, but at the cost of not having another $300 console release. See, these guys, they want $300 consoles released, and they don't give a damn about graphics or any of that stuff. They're not trying to hear that. They don't even care if Microsoft doesn't ever release another 60 frame per second game ever again. All they care about is just let them play whatever game. Redfall is perfectly fine. Love it. They love it. Whatever. Let every game from here on out be 30 FPS. No VR, no ray tracing. Hell, they could be 1080p. They don't care. All they care about is they were able to get a console sooner rather than later, and they have access to 400 games. And they're not trying to hear anything about the Series S being a problem. They want Microsoft to continue this strategy. Keep releasing consoles at $300, and they don't give a damn if developers have issues, if there's problems, or if it screws over the $500, $600, whatever version, upper version. They don't care about that one. Hell, for them, if you were to ask them Series S or Series X, they'll choose Series S all day. They'll say scrap off the Series X. They don't care. And that's what happened in the Xbox community. You got guys pushing back on any conversation about Series S being a trash console, disrupting the ecosystem of Xbox or whatever, simply because to them, they rather just play whatever. They don't care about the quality or the advanced graphics or anything like that. Nope. Just give them a $300 console, give them access to Game Pass, and whatever's whatever. Performance, who cares? 4K, ray tracing, VR, doesn't matter. Stability, hell. Missing features, patch it in later. Don't matter. None of that matters. They do not want to go back to a world where Microsoft releases a 500 or 600, whatever, a high-end console with zero options of a lesser $300 option. They're not trying to hear that. So they're going to push back. They're going to fight against it. Hell, they will probably say Microsoft needs to stick with the $300 model and screw the $500 bad boy. And that's what's going on. And that is when I realized this is why you get so much pushback on Twitter. Those guys do not care about performance. They don't care about none of that at all. For the first time, they just got a console. They don't really care how games come out. They don't care if it's half-assed, unfinished. It doesn't matter. Because the reason why, they rather have a library of 400 games that are unfinished, but at least it's 400 games, versus going back to the world they used to be in, which was maybe play a couple of games that they buy, or maybe a couple of games that they're able to get on sale for like $15, $20. They don't want to go back to that. They want the access to the 400 games, and they don't even care about the quality. A game's a game's a game's a game to them. Doesn't matter. They'll play it and they'll move on to the next one. They don't care if it's broken. They don't care if it's missing features. They don't care if it's missing modes. None of that matters. It's all about the quantity. And well, that's an Xbox problem. That's a problem you guys are going to have to deal with. I hope PlayStation doesn't make that same mistake. I know they talked about saying they were thinking about it, but they realized this is a bad strategy. So I'm glad they stuck with the one console strategy with hardware. But who knows? Sony might make that mistake one day, which I doubt they do. But right now, this is an Xbox problem. The hierarchy of power shift. And right now, the casuals run Xbox. And they do not care about Xbox performance at all, which is probably why Microsoft's not interested in making a mid-gen refresh. They know the majority of gamers they have on their side don't care about that power shit. It's going to be interesting to see what Microsoft does next gen. Are they going to come? I think at a minimum, they're going to do the same two-tier console strategy. If they do a one console strategy, I would say that it's not going to be a monster, eats monsters for breakfast type console. It's going to be a moderate console. Very moderate, maybe 350. And that's it. It's just a console to play games. I could see Microsoft going that direction. Either that direction, or they're going to go back to the two console strategy, to which, once again, a lot of people will complain. But that's an Xbox problem. But you let me know what you think. Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Have you noticed the shift in the hierarchy of power? I did. You guys take care. Peace.